What is up, my Raptorians? I am your host tonight. We don't have Oren, we don't have Sahal, so we got a fearsome foursome. I'm the host, Aiden Moss. We got Kelsey with us. We got Manny, and we got Kyle. Friends, welcome to the Rapcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it takes two people to make that
welcome.
welcome.
I don't know if you guys have gone through your manners or not. So that was an interesting game. The first three quarters was a slog. Toronto looked very out of sorts, unless their name was Scottie Barnes or Gary Trent Jr. And then fourth quarter came alive, and it was a barn burner. It seemed like this one was just going to be put to bed early, and then Orlando stormed back. They pulled a Toronto versus Washington comeback to make things interesting, and we pulled it out. So let's, Kelsey, maybe you want to share your general impressions with the game.
Fourth quarter Freddie's become a thing, huh?
Indeed.
The last couple games we've seen. I mean, he starts off, to be completely honest with you, extremely frustrating. And then the fourth quarter, he kind of finds what he needs to do and what he can do and executes it a lot better than all of the stuff he's attempting throughout the first three.
Yeah, it's almost as though he just kind of wakes up from this fuzz, this funk. He went 6 for 7 in the fourth quarter, 2 threes. And, you wouldn't think it because he spent that entire game kind of just bumbling around, holding onto the ball for way too long and not really doing what you want with your main creator. Kyle, thoughts?
Yeah. First, I want to say, forget fourth quarter Freddie, fourth quarter Delano. Delano's closing games now, close games. What is this, fifth game of the year of his career?
True.
It's incredible. But yeah, big takeaways that this might be the rookies team. I think that there's a decent argument to be made that Scottie is the best player on this team 5 games in. Pascal is out at the moment. Obviously, when he gets back, maybe things will be different. But the Raptors had a huge first half, basically shooting 30% for the field, with the exception of Scottie, who went 8 for 11.
Absolutely wild.
It is wild. I mean, that first half was the Scottie show. It was interesting. Lou Zatzman was tweeting about this. They had Bamba on Barnes early, and I guess the strategy was to kind of have a double centered defense where you have this big long guy on Barnes, and then you have help side another big. But Barnes just went to work. I mean, it didn't seem to work. Bamba gave him too much space, and Barnes is so comfortable in that 10-foot jumper range. I've really never seen a guy just so comfortably and so accurately hit those little jumpers. They're usually a little bit harder for guys to hit, or they hit them on pull-ups, but he just kind of right there, you just see it. He just easily puts them in. Manny, what do you got for us? What'd you think?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. Hitting on Scottie again, and I don't want to, it's Scottie and everyone loves him, but his mid-range, number one, his shooting was one of the things that people were, I think, worried about coming into the season. He's shown that he's not scared of it, so why the hell should anybody else be? Really loving seeing him develop, and I'm actually really surprised at how his game is translated into the NBA when you consider that he came off the bench in college. Honestly, I did not expect this from him, and I don't think we're overhyping it. I think it's this is possibly the best start to a rookie season that the Raptors have had. I would say that, but yeah, I'm just surprised at how slow the game has become for him. It's come to him really easily, it seems, and he just has a touch. And also Delano in the fourth quarter, I'm so happy that he's playing, because yeah, I love the way he plays too. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He sets the pace. Yeah, I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. So gonna end there.
It's kind of interesting that closing lineup of Banton, Barnes, OG, Trent Jr., and Freddie, like another incarnation of this long and lengthy and fast and scrappy defensive team or lineup. It's kind of cool that they can be so versatile and kind of just play who's rolling. Precious looked really out of sorts tonight. Like I don't know if he just gets in his head so quickly, like he misses a couple of shots and he just doesn't seem to give a shit afterwards. Well, I think I have him in film. I'm not sure, but he just missed so many rotations. He wasn't boxing out. There was one play where Banton goes to inbound it, or Banton's waiting for the inbound, and
Yeah.
Precious just kind of like, and Banton like literally pushes him with the ball. He's like, "Get the fuck out of bounds and give me the ball so we can get going." And so it's nice that we can throw somebody in for him and still keep up that defensive intensity.
I think the opposite with Precious. I think he doesn't think enough.
Mm.
You know how
Okay.
when you see, like, Norman Powell used to have the problem where he would get in his head and he would overthink things. Whereas Precious, what I've noticed anyway, and I could be completely wrong, but when he takes a second to think about what he's going to do next is when he's the most successful. When he doesn't, when he tries to be like a catch and shoot or a catch and drive player, that's when he's making all of these mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. This team is really kind of that in more generally. Like all of them are not really picking their spots properly, and they're trying to do too much. OG, you see it constantly. Like he just can't really figure out when to take his opportunities. And Fred, well, we all know Fred just dribbling around for like, and then has to hoist something towards the end. Kyle, you mentioned Barnes being our best player. Like, do we need to just give him more shots?
I don't. It's hard to say whether he should be. I mean, I think there should be more looks for him. It's hard to say, like, because he performed really well tonight, basically within the flow of the offense. He didn't necessarily create that much for himself. It was like little duck-ins, quick cuts, some spot-up jumpers. Like, I'm not sure if it's like a hand the keys of the offense over to Barnes type thing, like have him run every single set as the primary ball handler. But like, yeah, I mean, some of those OG isolations at the end of possessions are atrocious. Like those are gross. That could be a Barnes possession. Like some of those, like Fred 5-second bailouts, those could be Barnes possessions. So we'll see. Like the balance is going to start tipping if he keeps performing like this. He'll have no choice.
The thing about Scottie,
Kelsey,
though, is he doesn't need to be the guy with the ball in his hands all the time, because he can do so much off the ball as well, that even when he's not the primary option, even when he's not, the first scorer, he's still contributing in so many ways. And I think that's what's so unique about him as a draft pick and as a rookie and just as a player, is that he's so impactful everywhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. He's it's so crazy to think that he's like had this really good 5-game stretch, and going 8 for 11 in the first quarter alone, like that's I honestly, Mike, it takes my breath away. It's amazing. Now with going back to OG, I think the one thing I noticed with him, and I don't know if you guys agree with this or if you guys saw this, but I think his footwork is a little off. I noticed that when he's down low or in the paint, or even off his first step, there's games where I've seen him where, like, I've seen that first step take it's gotten better, but there's still times where he seems a little unconfident, or just kind of not as aware of his surroundings. But I don't know whether that comes with him having this elevated role as 1 or 2 on offense, but there's definitely something that's been off about him, and I think it has to do with his footwork more than anything.
Yeah, his footwork, and I've also seen like his center of gravity seems to be off. Like he seems to stumble at times, or kind of overstep and kind of be falling towards the hoop. I definitely think psychologically he's really toiling with how to be a number 1B option for a team. Like you can kind of see him taking the shots that he thinks he's supposed to take, but they're not really in his repertoire. And granted, he should be experimenting. He should be expanding his game. That's what we want from him. But you can just kind of tell he's used to being the role player, and so this is a little bit uncomfortable for him. Going back to Barnes, we saw him with some screen and roll action with Freddie. I granted, or maybe we don't want to we don't want him carrying the ball up the court, but I'm wondering if we have thoughts plugging him in elsewhere in the offense where we can kind of get things going through him, because we saw a lot of how the offense struggles and just kind of dies, runs out of oxygen essentially. Anybody have thoughts on that?
You know what? Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say.
You go.
Let me see some his comp coming into the league, and I think it's pretty accurate. Is that he's like a Draymond Green? He's more athletic, but he has like the playmaking skills and the size. And like, let me see a little bit of Freddie screening for Scottie up top. They run that stuff for Curry all the time. Freddie has good gravity, and they had a similar concept after timeout, the end of the game, close baseline. Basically, Barnes or Freddie screening for Barnes slips to the 3-point line, wide open shot, because Barnes has so much gravity going to the hoop. I mean, I think that action is almost guaranteed to produce Barnes headed downhill with a head of steam, or Freddie with a decent shot. I think that would be really fruitful, especially when they go through droughts like this.
Yeah, I would say that he would be. I want to see him in the high post a lot, because I think he can draw a lot of attention up there, and he's already he can score clearly from up there. The mid range game is coming along nicely. I think he would be really effective in the high post when he's drawing attention from pretty much like the wing, pretty much from the paint. Like, people would have to come up, and I wonder if there's going to be a time. I'm sure there will be a time where you see him being double teamed, and I think in a high post, like, he's so long, he can probably pass down, he can pass it out. Like, I think he'd be really great in the high post, facilitating the offense through him, kind of like the Bulls did with Joakim Noah like years ago, and I think kind of like how Miami did with Chris Bosh in the Big Three era, where both of those guys played in the high post. I'd like to see Scottie there for sure.
Guess how many assists Barnes had tonight?
Well, the box score's up. Should I pretend I don't see the box score?
Don't look at the box.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
How many did you think?
4.
How many did you feel like he had? Maybe, I don't know.
I'm feeling like it was a 4 assist kind of night.
That's kind of what I thought too, and then I was surprised to see 1.
You should have let me cheat. That's so embarrassing.
This is why basketball needs hockey assists.
Yeah.
Totally.
Scottie's stat line would be off the charts.
Yeah, because to Kyle's point, like, the gravity he does create in the center of the half court is immense, and that's why I'm asking. Is I think our half court is so emaciated, it's so bad, and like Orlando's a okay defensive team, but they're not top tier, and we still can't get anything going. So it would be interesting to see if we can start working off of Barnes a little bit more. Even like a high-low with him and OG would be kind of nice. But
man, you mentioned the high post. Like, forget the high post. He gets these cross matches in transition where he's guarding like Cole Anthony on the other end. Forget the high post. Like, go down there. You're 6'9" or whatever. Like,
if it's a mismatch all day, let him eat.
That's a great cross match in transition, and then for some reason they don't go to him yet. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been harping on this, and I'll probably continue to do so until I see more of it. But OG and Barnes in the low post, like when they have those mismatches, they are gargantuans against most smaller guards. And we should be exploiting that. I mean, we should be taking every advantage we can get at this point, because they're far and few between. Moving on to arguably the player of the game, I'd be interested to see who you all would choose, but I'm thinking Gary. we could say that Gary's had definitely he's had better offensive games, but this version of Trent Jr. 2.0, the defensively minded Gary, that in addition to him scoring in a lot of different ways, made me think that this is one of his best games as a Toronto Raptor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking the same thing. Probably after that deflection, when he stole the ball and or he scored the ball, then scored or got a deflection afterwards. But I was actually thinking, that one right there. I was actually thinking, how do you take him out of the starting lineup? At this point, because I think he's just so effective. And even last season, he showed he was a better player starting than he was coming off the bench. I don't know if he's as effective coming off the bench, which obviously some players have to transition into. But I mean, if he plays this well on both ends, that's going to be a tough decision to make for Nick Nurse. Who do you send back to the bench when Siakam gets back if Gary Trent continues to play like this well?
I have a crazy idea, but I'll save it. Kelsey, you have any thoughts on Gary?
Gary has been. The thing about most improved player is when you get in a situation like Gary, where he was kind of given this role to just score when he came to Toronto. And before that, you don't really know what his role was with Portland. So you don't know if he's had this the whole time and he's just finally being able to use it, or if this is just something that he's going to continue to develop. But whatever it is, I love it. And he won the game tonight. He didn't have the most points, but there was not a loose ball that Gary Trent Jr. was not going to put his life on the line trying to save.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can't teach. You can't teach that kind of heart or that kind of hustle. So no matter how skilled the person coming in after him is going to be, they're not going to have the same grind that Gary does.
Yeah, and last year, he really worked hard to get his shot. And I thought he was going to be that kind of guy. You kind of know that archetype in the NBA. It's kind of like the Jordan Clarkson or whatever. But then this year, it's to the total opposite defensively. And some guys are really dependent on extrinsic energy, being motivated extrinsically. I think possibly Boucher and Precious are like that. But Gary's he's got his own motor, and it's something I did not anticipate. Kyle, did you see or what are your impressions on Gary's defense?
If we sat here in August and if I told you, we're going to be talking about how Trent's biggest flaw is his playmaking and not his defense. He might be one of the best defenders, the hardest working defenders on the team, and he's not making open passes, and that's our biggest problem with him. You guys would be shocked. It's obvious that whatever Nurse spoke to him about, or really he laid out a plan for him, because Gary is earning his minutes. And I think there was a time maybe in training camp or in preseason where it looked like he might be losing those minutes to Dragic or Flynn or maybe even Banton or any number of new players. And I think that you're right. Everyone, I can't see him leaving the starting lineup just because even if he maintains an average level of defense, he's such a good floor spacer. And the Raptors don't really have a guy who's a knockdown shooter in the same way that Trent. Few teams in the league have a knockdown shooter like Trent. You can't take that guy out of the starting lineup.
And the other thing that I just want to add on top of that is that what we added, that we talked about how he wasn't willing to it looked at times last year he wasn't willing to drive to the basket, and that's also something that seems to be coming along pretty well. I'm very, very pleased with how Gary Trent Jr. is playing this year so far. It's like I said, it's a great problem to have, but I do not envy Nick Nurse just because he has to figure out that starting rotation or that starting lineup when Pascal gets back. And oh man, I don't know how you take him out of there. I don't know how you take Gary Trent Jr. out of the starting lineup.
Save that quandary for a little bit later, because I got a segment on rotations.
This is your second mention. It better live up to all the hype of this.
I have a say, but generally, I want to get everybody's thoughts on it. I'm going to transition to our Can-Am Taxman of the Night, which is my awkward segue into our sponsor read, which is our Can-Am CPA is a full-service small business accounting and tax firm with an experienced and friendly staff that can help you navigate a triangle offense better than Jerry Sloan. I thought Phil Jackson was a triangle offense guy, but maybe Jerry had it going on too. Maybe NBA historians can let me know in the chat. They also provide personal tax preparation and can recover the refunds that you are entitled to. Don't leave that money on the table. If you have questions about your personal tax question, reach out. They'd be happy to help the Raptors community. And you can check out their Google reviews and visit them at www.canamtax.com. It's in the comments box. I definitely read that better than Sahal. I don't care what anybody says. Taxman of the Night. So typically the taxman's the bad guy, but in this case, Can-Am saving you money. So who is your taxman of the night, Manny?
Bad guy of the night. I'm only saying this because he absolutely killed the Raptors on the boards. Mo Bamba. Honestly. Okay. Are we talking about we can only pick Raptors, or are we picking
well, whatever. If he stood out to you, he stood out to you.
He stood out to me, yeah. And the reason I'm saying bad guy is because I'm perceiving it as like the villain of the game in terms of like who killed the Raptors, who like really dominated there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I was gonna say, I'm going with Mo Bamba, and I was actually thinking about how nice he might have been on the Raptors because damn, he played really well. He even had like 3 blocks, 5 assists, 18 boards. Like, Jesus, killed the Raptors.
He had that big block on OG right towards the end of the game that kept them fully in the game.
Yeah, just a monster.
Kyle, you got a taxman of the night?
I'll go Freddie. He did save the game in the fourth quarter, and he also, like, seemingly responsible young man, did well by his money. Seems like a taxman type of guy.
Good, you got my analogy. Kelsey, taxman of the night.
I'm gonna say Precious because he went through accounting school and he did all the right things, but he's like totally out of his element in the professional world.
Love it.
So he's trying his best to save you money, but then you end up in jail.
That's good stuff.
Okay, you all had like analogies and like related it to tax, and I'm just like here saying like Mo Bamba killed the Raptors. I feel so dumb right now.
Well, they got progressively better.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I didn't give you much time to really think about it, and I don't even really know what I meant necessarily. I thought I'd just try it out there.
All right. Well, it worked out. I think it went well.
I did
Manny, if you keep winning, you're going to need Can-Am. You're going to be intimately familiar with Can-Am if you keep winning those bets.
Well, I'm seeing in the comments, people are wondering about Goran Dragic. So, what are we doing with Dragic? He got a DNP tonight. Did he have a DNP last game too? I think so. So it's 2 in a row. So it looks like this could be already the end of the road for Goran. What do we think?
Yeah, I fully think. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, he's. I don't know. He just hasn't been as effective. Like Nick Nurse seems to have pivoted towards. He's not doing the 2 point guard lineup anymore the way he did last year, or the year before that. I think it's not as effective, and he's realizing that. And I spent the last like 5-10 minutes going over Gary Trent being, really great, and we all did too. But simply put, I just don't. He's not as effective as I think he was expected to be. So it makes sense to me. The numbers, he isn't shooting it well. He's not scoring a lot, and he's kind of, I don't know. He's not getting it on defense either. I think that's fair.
What Kelsey? What do you think? What do you think the Raptors should do with Dragic?
That's tough because when that deal was made, I was such a Dragic truther. Like, I believed in him before he got here. I was a really big fan of his, and I thought that what he did with Miami would translate to Toronto, and he would give you kind of that that Kyle role, that veteran point guard leadership role, and it just hasn't happened yet. But he also mentioned in a scrum before that it's difficult for him because he hasn't really played in a 2-point guard lineup.
Mm.
So I don't know if we give him time or we cut him loose. I don't really know what the options are.
Kyle, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it's incredibly brave to have been a Dragic truther. So I think like we got to give you some respect, even for at any point taking that stance. But
Ouch.
I think part of the reason that the 2-point guard, 2 small guard lineups worked last year with Lowry is that Lowry can switch on to bigger guys. He was heavy. He could really he could survive in the post. He could even survive against some longer wings. Like I remember playoff series where you get switched on to Paul George, and like I, as a fan, wouldn't be breaking a sweat. Like it'd be enjoyable to watch that matchup. Gordon doesn't have that ability. There's no way that the Raptors can switch anything while Dragic is playing with Van Vliet. And that really decimates the defensive strategy that Nurse is going for with all these long switchable guys. So I don't really see a place for Dragic in the lineup with Fred, and then really without Fred, I think he could probably be effective, but I don't understand why he's around, especially with Flynn's like rotting on the bench. Banton looks incredible. He's closing games. So I don't really understand why he's still with the team. I think they should basically look to move him for anything at this point.
Well, the common thought has been that we're putting him on display, but you run that risk because if you put him on display and he's garbage, then you just sunk the value. So maybe that's what they decided quite quickly is like he had a glimpse. He looked okay last game. Now let's just bench him and hope that we can find a resolution. If Goran's DNP and Malachi's DNP, that's more time for Banton. Are we all happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Without even a question.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the one thing that Goran did bring was a little bit of rim pressure. Like he does have that veteran savvy to find the threads and get to the rim. But Banton seems to be able to do that. He really relies on that kind of that change of speed crossover from the top of the key. It seems to work a lot for him. And he's just a ball of energy coming off that bench. So yeah, it was interesting to see him come in the first quarter so quickly.
I think also, I think he was expected to provide some sort of playmaking, and just haven't really seen that much of it from him. And I think Delano overall just has a better feel at this point for the Raptors and their system. He just looks to be getting at it.
Yeah, I agree. It's time for our new segment, Film Breakdown. In this segment, I don't know if you were with us last game, but we reviewed film, a certain play, and talked about it and broke it down and to talk about what we liked and didn't like. And so let's see what we got first. Whose play is this?
Oh, this is mine. Yeah, this is beautiful. So Delano got the ball up top. He has, I think that's Cam. Oh no, that's Cam that he does a give and go with. So this is part of the pace of the game and like just the confidence that he has. It's like it's weird as a second round rookie for that to him to be this confident in it. But I mean, like I've been saying this since I think preseason. Is just like he just always has a purpose. He just always seems to know what his next step is going to be. And here's a great example of how he's able to play make for himself, but also, in the event that somebody that he needed to hit Boucher, who's coming on the baseline there as a cutter, he easily could have done that and found Boucher. But I think that there's no question Delano, I think, belongs in the rotation. And at this point, it looks like he's going to be there over Flynn. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I enjoy seeing him play, and I want to see him play more.
Yeah, I think again, I've always or I have been saying that my concern with someone like Banton is the slog of a game in those half court sets. But if he's making cuts like this, and if he's constantly putting pressure, either through ball creation or through cutting, then he's going to find minutes, and it creates more space. The fact that he's back cutting and going down the lane, Gary Trent's filling in. He's there for an option if Birch can't find Banton. So it's all good stuff. Anybody have thoughts on this film?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had one of those weatherman pen things where you can like draw on the screen.
Yeah.
But just the way that even when he cuts down the center, he creates so much space for everyone else that if he were to get trapped in the paint, he could easily kick it out to Boucher, or he could easily kick it back to OG or back to Gary. Like there's so many options for him when he does that. It's remarkable to see, and that connection between him and Kem is something else. Like that's something definitely to watch because it's there and it's great.
Yeah, it's a nice constant to have off the bench. It's also nice to be 6'9". I mean, like you watch Fred just struggle to find an open spot to get that, just to pass it, let alone score. But guys like Barnes and Banton, who are naturally inclined to create, whether for themselves or for others, it's like really advantageous to be able to look over players.
Yeah, I agree. He could have easily drawn in defenders there, passed it out. Just I don't know. I think I'm such a homer for Delano Banton. I can't help it because he's just so, like, I'm not even kidding. Like, if I'm gonna get really into it, and this is the last I'm gonna speak of this, but like you see him and like he's going down the court. It's like he's a stallion. You know what I mean? Like he's literally like the wind is blowing through his hair. Like I'm sorry. I just love the way this guy plays, and God, I'm so
Delano
happy.
the Stallion.
Yeah,
Dude,
seriously, Delano B. Stallion.
I literally tweeted that when him and Barnes kind of get off to a full court sprint, they look like two wolves that have decided to go off into the night and hunt their prey. Like they're like stallions analogous too. Like they're so elegant but so violent at the same time. You know, like
Majestic.
There's so much power and majesty with them as well.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting too poetic.
I'm sorry. That's all I gotta say.
This T. Ross getting lost on a back cut like this is giving me PTSD. We have to move on.
Oh my God, it's so classic.
Look at it the way he looks around. Like, oh God, no.
He's such a space cadet. Like God love him.
Yeah.
But he's just, like he's so locked in here. And then forgot that Banton can move without the basketball.
That's amazing. Oh, T. Ross.
All right, let's go to the next film. If we may, Don.
I mean, I could watch Delano all day, really.
I gotta. Oh, here we go.
There we go. Gary Trent. Okay, so yeah, this one I picked out. One second.
I think you picked this one out as well, man.
Yeah, so he scores and then he runs back on defense because he's like, I'm gonna get this steal. Yeah, so this goes back to just how much we spoke about him earlier on, and just how he looks like such an improved player. Even though the numbers may not necessarily always reflect it, he is getting, like Kels alluded to earlier, if there was a loose ball, like he was willing to put everything on the line to get it. And that play is a perfect example of that. He scores and then he's like, no, I'm not done. And he goes back and he's like, I'm going to get this possession back. And that's exactly what he does. He plays solid D, gets the ball back. And I mean, really, it's remarkable. I mean, I'm so happy with how much he's progressed.
Kyle, do you think Gary's going to keep this defense up all year? Like, are we just kind of seeing an anomaly, or is this here to stay?
I think the Raptors are in a good spot with Gary because he's still pushed for minutes. Like he hasn't have a cemented spot yet. I mean, we're advocating for him to have a designated starting role for the rest of his life. But I mean, as long as he's still competing for minutes with other guys, he's going to be locked in defensively. And I think that is part of the advantage to maybe having a guy like Dragic around or anyone else who can really push Gary because there's real competition for those two spot minutes, and as long as he keeps up the defensive intensity, I don't see any way he could lose that.
So you're saying the value of Dragic is
that he pushes everyone else.
Is the shadow of Dragic, not his real
a $19 million shadow.
Yeah, there's something. I don't know, maybe I'm just I just miss Kyle Lowry a lot, but I keep trying to find parallels to what Kyle did for this team with players that we currently have on our roster. And it feels like Gary's defensively starting to see things in a 4-dimensional way, the way Kyle did. He's blasting passing lanes. He's his timing on help side is impeccable. He's obviously longer and more athletic than Kyle, and so he's really getting in there into people's ball handling spaces and stuff. And so it feels like this is something to stay because it's not just effort and hustle, but it's also thoughtfulness at the same time. Let's go to our final film, Don, if you may. Okay, I think this is me. I think this is a hate on Precious time, if I recall. It's a high screen. Well, this video might be too choppy. Oh, that was it right there. That, to me, that was the symbol of Precious's game. It's just he plays the pick and roll fine, whatever. He kind of helps on the baseline drive, and then on the second rebound, he just literally stands there and watches Gary Harris grab it again. And it felt like that all night. And Precious had this game earlier in the season already too, where he's just kind of checked out at times. He does step over and help, but then he kind of just stops. It's almost like he forgot the play is still going on. So yeah, that's mostly just what I wanted to highlight is that we kind of forget Precious as a sophomore. We kind of forget how raw and how new all of this is too. And so his I feel like his concentration levels, kind of to Kelsey's point earlier, aren't high enough to warrant him getting starter minutes the whole time.
Yeah, what I'll say about Precious, it's not going to be reflected in this clip, but offensively, and it's kind of the similar thing with Boucher is that sometimes just because your coach lets you be creative with the ball and handle and make plays in space doesn't mean you're forced to. You have to. And it seems like a lot of the bigs, especially Precious and Boucher, are trying to create maybe a little too much than they're really capable of at this point. And it when it's working, we get to sit here and say look, the Raptors run so well. This is so innovative of Nurse to let these guys off the leash and go crazy and run down the court like a pack of wolves or stallions or whatever. But there's the downside in that the Precious has 2 or 3 moments a game where he basically dribbles into traffic and you as a fan have a heart attack and are just in disbelief of what he even wants to do in that moment. Same thing with Boucher. Boucher will throw up 2 or 3 just contested long threes every game, which just make you hold your head.
Dude, don't get me started on that.
This is the result of the system. This isn't accidental. He let the players have freedom. This is what freedom means.
Yeah.
So.
I was actually going to ask you, Kelsey, what you thought about Boucher's game tonight.
I thought he was better. I mean, Chris Boucher is such a wild card because you never really know what A, he was told to do, B, if he's going to listen to what he was told to do, and C, what exactly he's trying to do. And I, as a general rule, I'm not a fan of your big man shooting the 3. I think your big man should always anticipate the rebound. on whatever shot, especially on a three. So
Yeah.
when he's the one taking the three and there's no one down there to rebound, it just feels like a wasted possession. And we get that a lot from him. But on the same hand, he's also pretty good from three for the most part. So that's kind of where I get conflicted with him, is that he doesn't really have this carved out role where it's like Precious, where you're just there to grab the rebound. Or like Kem, where you're there to screen and, pass. But Boucher he's a tricky one. And about that last clip, the only thing I want to say is I have no idea when Gary Harris joined the Magic.
Oh yeah, he was in the Aaron Gordon trade.
Okay.
He was the money filler with RJ Hampton, and I think a late draft pick. And
Okay.
that poor dude, he got paid and then he fell right off, and he actually looked good tonight, which was kind of concerning from Toronto's perspective. He was 5 for 11, 3 assists, 1 turnover. Like, that's pretty solid. I think Denver would have killed for that last year had he been doing that as a constant, but he has not been to date. As far as Chris Boucher, I mean, yeah, he's been slinging them in the past couple of games and not with any rhythm or flow. I think he was 3 for 18 coming into this game from 3. He was 1 for 2. The one he nailed was in flow. Like, it was still contested, classic, but it was in rhythm and he nailed it. What's been interesting is I think he feels a little out of sorts with Birch and Precious around. Like, he seems to be thinking, like, to your point, Kelsey, that he's like a wing player. And he's not. He doesn't have the ball control. He doesn't have like the threat of a jumper. He has nothing. So I think he feels at a loss a little bit with this system. It's too bad. Like, I feel like if he just bought in like Gary has, he could be a demon on the defensive end and then just clean up buckets where he can offensively and let it come more naturally to him.
Yeah, I'll say this, that last year he kind of came in as like a spark plug, and I find that he probably had more freedom last year, just given that he's probably the second best big on the team. But this year, I think the expectations for him were probably different and a little bit more set in terms of he probably wasn't able to be all over the court this year, or he probably was asked not to be all over the court this year. Well, last year, that's kind of like, that's exactly what he did. Like, he just provided energy, and, he was roaming around freely. And, this year it seems like this role that he's now set in, he's trying to figure out how to be effective in it. And, sometimes he gets lost and goes back to his old play style, which I guess it's clearly not working in terms of, for him or the Raptors. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. I thought he's probably, I have him as being a trade candidate this year by the deadline, just given his contract situation and everything like that. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with him. I still think he can be a great rotation player for the Raps, but let's see what role he carves out.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think role definition's like kind of leaving him hanging right now. He doesn't really have a feel for what he's supposed to be doing out there. It's kind of a good segue to my basically final question of the show tonight is who's in, who's out of the rotation? Because Dragic is DNP, Pascal's working his tail off in the 905. He's with the Raptors for the road trip, so he's imminent. We alluded to this earlier with Gary Trent Jr. Kelsey, who's your starting 5 when Pascal's back? And who's coming off the bench?
Can we have Pascal play the 5?
That was my big thing. Oh.
There we go.
Go with it. Go with it.
If we can get AD to buy in, I think we can get Pascal to buy in.
Do you want to elaborate?
No.
Okay, I will do it because that was my
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, especially someone as lovely and sweet as Precious Achiuwa.
That was my big climax for this episode. I think Barnes is so goddamn big. So is OG. We saw last year against Embiid the OG Siakam somebody maybe in the backcourt, and it worked. We're bigger now. We rebound better from the wing position. Why not just not have a center? Many thoughts.
So, yeah, that's the most ideal situation, I would say. Pascal playing the 5 because, Pascal, when there's a zone defense as well, is so like his role in that zone defense when it's a 3-2, being the middle guy. I remember seeing plays from past seasons, and he's so effective at, controlling defenders, forcing the opposition to go a certain way. And he's long, and this whole team now is long, and his whole team is like 6'8", 6'9". Precious, I think we're seeing kind of the things that he has to improve on. You said it before, Aiden. You said it's his sophomore season, and it's easy to forget that. But I mean, at this point, like I said before, man, I can't see Gary Trent coming out of the starting rotation. You're not going to take Scottie out. You're not going to take OG out. You're not taking Fred out. I mean, I could see maybe Pascal coming off the bench for the first handful of games just to kind of get his conditioning and get his rhythm back. But I mean, I think it's going to be, Fred at the 1, Gary Trent at the 2, OG, Scottie at the forward positions, and then you're going to see Pascal at the 5. I think that's the best option, man. Like I can't think of any better combination right now. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it affects Precious in terms of how he's going to play off the bench. But I mean, I think that's the most obvious answer.
Yeah. One thing about protecting against bigs is having high ball pressure, which Fred and Gary are both quite good at, and OG. So if you can and if you can get up in their space so that they don't even have time to get into their action or find the big man, you can kind of get away with it. Kyle, who's your starting 5 when Pascal's back?
I got it. Pascal's at the 5. Yeah, it's hard to. It's just at a certain point you just have to start your best players. And what I will say is that whatever the biggest concern would be what happens when they play a dominant center like an Embiid or a Jokic. But I guess what I counter to that is that do you feel particularly good about Precious on Embiid or Precious on Jokic? I'm not exactly thrilled about that either. I think it speaks to a bigger problem on the team is that there isn't really a guy who's a lockdown big, traditional big who can match up with these guys. This is where we miss a Marcus Sol or a Serge Ibaka type. But as long as we're rolling with these smaller guys, even Birch isn't that big and isn't that dominant defender. As long as we're rolling with these smaller guys, just start the best 5 guys. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, it's kind of not that we're the Warriors or anything offensively, but it's kind of the logic that why don't we just play to our strengths and try and outrun these guys and give up what we give up on the defensive end. We're coming to the end here. Any last thoughts from any of y'all? Manny, congratulations. You were 2 for 3 on your predictions tonight.
Thank you.
For all of those who weren't privy to our private Slack channel, Manny called 3 for 3 with about 4 minutes left, assuming that the Raptors were going to cover the spread. And then Orlando,
they were up 107 to 98. They were up 107 to 98, and then they didn't score.
Orlando goes for an 11-0 run and crushes Manny's hopes and dreams and affirms his self-jinx. But congratulations on getting 2 out of the 3.
That's the best I've had so far, 2 out of 3.
And this was way too close of a game. Toronto, I said in the preview, which I wrote this morning, I thought Orlando was ripe for what the Raptors do as a predator. They're young, they're not that big, and they turned out to play great defense. So credit to Orlando. I think that was about as awful a game as Van Vliet and OG could have played for 3 quarters, but we still pulled out the W. Everybody, thanks for joining tonight. That is the wrap up. I'm your host, Aiden Moss, joined by Kelsey, Kyle, and Manny. Anybody got some plugs? Any articles coming down the
Manny, you
pipeline?
gotta do the people a favor, plug the gambling show, guys.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
free
All
money.
right, so here's the thing that's going on, everybody. So
Wrong guy.
I have
There he is.
I
That's
have
Manny.
So I have a pregame. That's every day, every game day. There's a pregame video coming out. It's called The Lineup. So if you could be so kind to head over to Raptors Republic YouTube channel, I just talk about two things that each team needs to do or each team needs to focus on in order to for the Raptors to win. Really, so it's really just for the Raptors to win. But I also provide betting aspects, including money line, point spread, and over under. So I'll give you the odds makers takes, and then I'll tell you what I think based on what the odds makers have provided us with. And so far tonight I was 2 for 3. Wednesday's game I was 2 for 3 as well. I missed it by literally a hair, by a free throw. That over under.
Guess what?
Huh.
A hair doesn't pay. Doesn't pay. You
Yeah,
lose.
no,
You
it
lose.
doesn't. I know. I was saying that, but that's So if you guys could be so kind to go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe to Raptors Republic, take a look at all our videos, all our shows. But for me particularly, the lineup, and that would be amazing, and I would be so blessed and so thankful for you all to do that. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
And thank you for letting me plug that, Aiden.
My pleasure.
Manny's
Don.
gonna teach me how to gamble because I have to run the Discord channel, and I don't know the first thing about sports betting.
Okay,
I make all my UFC bets based on walkout songs. So
of course, just read this book.
Oh, an external plug. I'd also like to thank Don Yang, our producer, for hooking us up with all these videos. Thank you, Don. Everybody else who's listening, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, read us on raptorsrepublic.com. We're all great writers. We do this for the love of the game. And we'll see y'all tomorrow night in Indiana, a rematch of a game ago. I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's going to be playing. Something wrong with that hamstring. They played the Nets tonight. Anybody know who won? All I saw was a video of KD absolutely murdering
destroying Torrey Craig
on a cross.
Brooklyn won.
Fourth quarter.
Brooklyn won 105 to 98. Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Torrey Craig got murdered, but he had a good game. Yeah.
So both teams coming off to a back-to-back. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Happy Halloween. Take care.